Here at the Louisiana Ecological Forestry Center, we explore practical land management approaches that balance production, conservation, and long-term sustainability. One approach that brings these goals together is silvopasture. When most people look at a pine forest, they see timber. When most people look at a pasture, they see livestock. But silvopasture combines both into one intentional system, integrating trees, forage, and livestock on the same piece of land in a way that benefits all three. Here in the Southeast, longleaf pine systems offer a unique opportunity for silvopasture because they are already adapted to open canopies, grazing, and prescribed fire. Here is Maya Stratman with the Leaf Center to tell us more about silvopasture in the longleaf pine ecosystem.
Silvopasture is an agroforestry practice that incorporates timber, forage, and livestock. This is not similar to just opening up a forested area and letting your cattle roam freely. This is an intentional practice that promotes forage growth, timber production, and the production of your livestock in one fully incorporated system. Longleaf is especially suited for silvopasture due to the fact that they have a very open canopy, and this allows sunlight to hit the bottom and really promote that forage growth underneath.
Longleaf pine is especially well suited for silvopasture because it is deep-rooted, drought-tolerant, and adapted to frequent prescribed fire. Its open canopy allows forage to grow while still providing shade and shelter for livestock. At the same time, longleaf systems support a wide range of native plants and wildlife, giving landowners the opportunity to produce timber and livestock while also improving habitat and diversifying income.
Another key consideration when you are looking to do silvopasture is your tree stand density or your planting. Now, if you're going to go from a pasture to a silvopasture, you're going to be planting trees. Now, we can think about this a couple different ways. We can think about this in terms of basal area, in which you would want a 40 to 60 basal area for a silvopasture. This again allows for sunlight to hit the bottom, give a more open canopy and space for your cattle to roam in this system. Another way you can think about it is in terms of rows and spacing. So one of the most popular setup for a silvopasture is a 2-row spacing. So you'll have 2 rows of trees that'll be 4 to 12 feet apart from each other. And then you'll have an alleyway of pasture that is more around the 40 to 60 feet apart. This allows your machinery to come in, your cattle to have pasture and space within your silvopasture system, but still allows you to have those trees and that timber production. Now here in this system, we have a clear cut and we have an opportunity to plant. For our planting purposes, we are going to do 218 trees per acre on one side, and then we're going to do 545 trees per acre on the other. This is so that we can kind of really quantify those differences of how much forage is growing underneath based on the amount of canopy that we have overhead. How is the cattle production changing when they are in a 218 versus a 545 trees per acre, and really just answer some of those questions that we have about how many trees there should be in a silvopasture system. Now, here are some grasses that we have in this pasture that I wanted to highlight. We have our broom sedge bluestem. In terms of quality of nutrition for cattle, this one is not the top. The other bluestems, such as the big bluestem and the little bluestem, are a little bit more nutritious for our cattle. Some other things that we have here are our bahia grass. Now, that is a great one. It grows pretty bountifully here. Some other of the warm season grasses that I like to highlight are your gamma grass. It's a bunch grass, it's native, and it seems to do really well in the south. We also have brown top milletweed. That is something that we overplant in some of our fire lanes, and it is a great forage for cattle. In terms of cool season grasses, things that you want to have when the forage quality is running low and there's not a lot of production here in the winter, I like to talk about ryegrass and clover, especially when you're talking about either planting some of your fire lanes or some of those areas. Those are great grasses to use. Another key component of silvopasture is your livestock management. Your management practices are really going to help dictate how much your forage is growing, how good your soil is doing, and what your timber is also doing. So for your livestock management, an adaptive management strategy is really going to help in these systems. An adaptive strategy is looking at what the land is telling you and responding to it. So you want to move your cattle or your goats or whatever livestock you are using through your system in a way that promotes soil health, that promotes forage growth. What that can look like is, let's say you have some undesirable species such as yaupon or beautyberry, and you want to get rid of those. Having a goat come through and browsing more of that woody species, and then having your cattle come in and graze that herbaceous understory is really going to help promote and get what you want out of your system. Adaptive systems also look like not grazing the same spot every single year at the exact same time. It's being open to moving your goats, your livestock, whatever you have, from one area to another based on the needs of the land. So when I'm talking about some of these unwanted species, some other ways that we can deal with that and use livestock to our advantage is like the beautyberry or the yaupon. Post fire, getting those livestock in that area densely to eat those tender shoots are going to help get rid of some of those invasives and deplete those resources. So think about what you want out of your operation, what you want out of your forage, and use your livestock to get to that point. Having hoof impact, having either cow patties or whatever it might be, or urine in this system is really going to give it the nutrients it needs to produce good forage and produce good timber. So don't be afraid to get playful with it. Move your livestock in unique and different patterns and really see what promotes the best for your area. Now, one thing to also consider is the timing of this. You want to make sure that you are putting livestock in 3 to 4 years after you've started planting it. You do not want trees in this early growth stage to be trampled or to be eaten on when you put livestock in here. However, a tree more at this stage is tall enough that it will be pretty resistant to livestock pressure. They're not going to come up and probably eat the tops of this if they have enough forage around, and this is not going to be harmed. Now, one other thing to think about is if you have your trees in row systems and they're still young in this stage, you may be able to put polywire around your rows and still let your livestock graze those alleyways so that you're really stockpiling nutrients and getting that forage growth going, that by the time you let them loose in that system, they have a lot of great forage to choose from. One other consideration is, now you might have a majority of your trees in this stage and maybe 1 or 2 are just not up yet. Do not let that stop you from grazing your silvopasture. 1 or 2 trees here and there are not going to really make or break your system. Be adaptive, use common sense, and really listen to your land to tell you what it needs and how you want to implement your livestock. Another important tool when we're talking about longleaf is prescribed fire. Prescribed fire can help us with reducing woody understory and allowing for native vegetation to come up. It also is just helpful for long-term ecosystem health in these longleaf systems. Now, we can use prescribed fire and grazing to help us based on our management goals. We may have an invasive problem such as sweet gum or yaupon. After prescribed fire moves through this system, tender shoots from yaupon and sweet gum may come up. Allowing grazers to be on this land while there's those tender shoots, they can graze those and hopefully deplete the resources over time and help us with our invasive species problem. Long-term planning is essential when we are creating a holistic and productive silvopasture system. Some things that we need to consider early on is our ideal livestock type, our stocking densities, our infrastructure wants and needs, our fire regimes, our tree planting and spacings, and the forage species that we want under our understory. Another huge component of this is our management style. All of these things need to be in consideration early on in the planning phase to create the silvopasture that we want.
Silvopasture and longleaf pine systems represents an opportunity to produce food, fiber, and environmental benefits on the same land while improving resilience and diversifying operations. If you are interested in learning more about silvopasture, longleaf management, and agroforestry practices, check out the new Longleaf Academies featuring silvopasture education opportunities. You can also connect with local extension agents, conservation organizations, and experienced producers working in silvopasture systems across the Southeast. Thank you for supporting our mission.